Imagine waking up one morning to discover that the balance of power in the Pacific Ocean has changed forever. Not because of a massive invasion, not because of a nuclear attack, but because for years, one nation quietly expanded its influence while the world was looking elsewhere. China has spent decades transforming itself from a regional power into one of the world's most capable military and economic giants. Today, its navy is the largest in the world by number of ships. Its missile forces can threaten aircraft carriers hundreds of miles away. Its economy reaches nearly every corner of the globe. And across the Pacific, a network of ports, islands, trade agreements, and military modernization has raised a question that concerns Washington more than any other. Is China preparing to become the dominant power in the Pacific? Some analysts believe Beijing has developed a long-term strategy that could eventually reshape global trade, military balance, and even America's role in Asia. Others argue that China's actions are primarily defensive, aimed at protecting its own security and economic interests. Whatever the interpretation, one thing is certain. The Pacific Ocean has become the center of the greatest geopolitical rivalry of the 21st century. In today's video, we'll explore China's long-term ambitions, the military buildup, the struggle over Taiwan, the importance of artificial islands, the race for naval supremacy, and why many experts believe the Pacific will determine the future of global power. Let's begin. For decades, the United States was the unquestioned naval power in the Pacific. Its aircraft carriers could sail almost anywhere. Its military alliances stretched from Japan and South Korea to Australia and the Philippines. Any nation attempting to challenge that dominance faced an enormous disadvantage. China understood this. Instead of trying to match American military power overnight, Beijing adopted a strategy that many defense analysts describe as one of patient, long-term competition. Rather than seeking direct confrontation, China invested heavily in the foundations of national power. Its economy expanded at an unprecedented pace. Millions of people moved into cities. Industrial production exploded. Technology companies grew into global giants. And with increasing economic strength came the resources to modernize the military. Unlike many countries that prioritize overseas military operations, China has largely concentrated its efforts on strengthening its position within what strategists call the First Island Chain, a series of islands stretching from Japan through Taiwan to the Philippines. This region is strategically vital. Nearly all of China's access to the wider Pacific passes through narrow maritime choke points controlled or monitored by U.S. allies. From Beijing's perspective, this creates a significant vulnerability. If a major conflict disrupted these routes, China's economy could face severe consequences, particularly because much of its imported energy and international trade travels by sea. That reality has shaped decades of Chinese military planning. Rather than focusing only on projecting power across the globe, China has invested in capabilities designed to make it far more difficult for opposing forces to operate close to its coastline. This approach is commonly referred to by military experts as anti-access area denial, or A2ID. The idea is not necessarily to control the entire Pacific. Instead, it is to increase the risks and costs for any military force attempting to intervene near China's shores. To support this strategy, Beijing has invested in advanced missile systems, integrated air defenses, submarines, cyber capabilities, space-based surveillance, and electronic warfare. The objective is to create layers of defense capable of detecting, tracking, and potentially deterring hostile forces before they can operate freely. For Washington, this represents one of the most significant strategic challenges in decades. The U.S. Navy has long relied on the ability to deploy aircraft carrier strike groups close to areas of tension, but modern precision missiles, long-range sensors, and increasingly capable naval forces have forced American military planners to rethink many of their traditional assumptions. This evolving competition has transformed the Pacific into far more than an ocean. It has become a vast strategic chessboard, where every island, shipping lane, radar installation, and naval base can influence the balance of power. And nowhere is this competition more visible than in one of the world's most disputed bodies of water: the South China Sea. At first glance, the South China Sea may look like just another stretch of ocean, but in reality, it is one of the most strategically important waterways on Earth. Every year, an estimated 1/3 of global maritime trade passes through these waters. Oil from the Middle East, manufactured goods from Asia, critical raw materials, countless shipping routes that keep the global economy running. Whoever can influence this region gains significant strategic leverage over international commerce. China has long claimed historical rights over much of the South China Sea through what became known as the Nine-Dash Line. However, these claims overlap with the exclusive economic zones claimed by countries such as the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan. The dispute has been one of the most persistent sources of tension in Asia. In 2016, an international arbitration tribunal ruled that China's expansive maritime claims had no legal basis under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Beijing rejected the ruling, maintaining its own interpretation of historical rights. But China did far more than issue diplomatic statements. It began transforming tiny reefs and submerged features into fully developed artificial islands. What were once little more than rocks surrounded by water gradually became military outposts. Satellite imagery revealed the construction of long runways capable of handling military aircraft, deep water harbors, radar installations, missile shelters, communication facilities, and logistics infrastructure that allows these outposts to support extended operations. These installations dramatically expand China's ability to monitor activity across the South China Sea. Aircraft can operate farther from the mainland. Ships can receive support without returning to Chinese ports. Sensors can detect movements across vast areas of ocean. Critics argue that these islands serve as forward military bases designed to strengthen China's strategic position. Chinese officials, on the other hand, have stated that many of the facilities also support civilian purposes, such as navigation safety, disaster response, and maritime services, while emphasizing their right to defend what they consider their territory. Regardless of which interpretation one accepts, the practical effect is undeniable. The military geography of the South China Sea has changed dramatically over the past decade. For the United States and several regional allies, this development raises concerns about freedom of navigation and the security of one of the world's busiest maritime corridors. That is why American warships regularly conduct freedom of navigation operations, sailing through disputed waters to demonstrate that they do not recognize excessive maritime claims. Each of these patrols sends a political message, and each Chinese response sends another. Neither side wants open war, but both continue demonstrating resolve. Every patrol, every military exercise, every new radar installation, every additional runway adds another piece to an increasingly complex strategic puzzle. And while the South China Sea is already a major flashpoint, there is one place where the stakes are even higher. An island located less than 200 kilometers from the Chinese mainland. An island that could determine the future balance of power in the entire Pacific, Taiwan. If there is one place where the strategic competition between China and the United States could become most dangerous, it is Taiwan. At first glance, Taiwan appears to be just another island in East Asia, but in reality, it sits at the crossroads of military strategy, global trade, and cutting-edge technology. For Beijing, Taiwan is not considered a foreign country. The Chinese government views the island as part of its territory and has repeatedly stated that reunification remains a long-term objective, while saying it prefers a peaceful outcome but has not ruled out the use of force under certain circumstances. Taiwan, however, has its own government, military, democratic institutions, and economic system. Although only a limited number of countries officially recognize Taiwan diplomatically, many, including the United States, maintain close economic and unofficial relations with the island. This creates one of the most delicate geopolitical situations in the world. Washington officially follows the One China policy, acknowledging Beijing's position without formally recognizing Chinese sovereignty over Taiwan. At the same time, the United States provides defensive support to Taiwan under domestic legislation and has repeatedly emphasized the importance of maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. This carefully balanced approach has helped preserve relative stability for decades. But that balance is becoming increasingly fragile. In recent years, China has significantly expanded its military activity around Taiwan. Large-scale naval exercises, fighter jets crossing the median line of the Taiwan Strait, long-range bomber patrols, missile drills, and increasingly complex joint operations involving the Navy, Air Force, and rocket forces. Chinese officials describe these exercises as necessary to safeguard national sovereignty and deter separatist movements. Meanwhile, Taiwan continues investing in modern weapons, coastal defenses, anti-ship missiles, drones, and reserve forces to strengthen its ability to resist potential military pressure. The United States and several allies have also increased their presence in the region through joint military exercises and naval deployments. The result is a strategic environment unlike almost anywhere else on Earth. Military aircraft from different countries may operate within minutes of each other. Warships routinely sail through nearby waters. Surveillance. Aircraft monitor movements around the clock. Every maneuver is carefully watched. Every exercise is analyzed. Every political statement is scrutinized. And beyond the military dimension, Taiwan holds another critical advantage. It is home to one of the world's most advanced semiconductor industries. The island produces many of the cutting-edge chips that power smartphones, artificial intelligence systems, advanced medical equipment, automobiles, satellites, and sophisticated military technologies. A major disruption in Taiwan would not only reshape regional security, it could also send shockwaves through the global economy, affecting industries on every continent. For that reason, Taiwan has become far more than a territorial dispute. It is now one of the world's most strategically significant locations. And as China strengthens its military around the island, it is also pursuing another objective: building a navy capable of operating far beyond its own coastline, across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean itself. For much of the 20th century, the United States Navy had no true rival. Its aircraft carriers could deploy almost anywhere on the planet. Its submarines patrolled every major ocean. Its network of overseas bases gave Washington an unmatched ability to respond quickly to crises. China knew that challenging this dominance would take decades, so instead of trying to build a navy identical to America's, it built one designed for its own strategic priorities. Over the last 20 years, Beijing has launched one of the fastest naval modernization programs in modern history. Today, the People's Liberation Army Navy is the largest navy in the world by number of battle force ships. Destroyers equipped with advanced radar systems, modern frigates, large amphibious assault ships, nuclear-powered submarines, conventional attack submarines, aircraft carriers, and an industrial shipbuilding capacity that continues producing new vessels at a remarkable pace. Unlike many Westerns countries, China possesses enormous commercial shipyards that can rapidly expand naval production when required. Military analysts often point to this industrial capacity as one of China's greatest long-term advantages. A modern navy isn't built only with technology, it's built with factories, steel, workers, supply chains, and the ability to replace losses faster than an opponent. At the same time, China has invested heavily in weapons specifically designed to challenge large naval fleets. Among the most discussed are its long-range anti-ship ballistic missiles. Some analysts have nicknamed them carrier killers because they are designed to threaten large warships operating hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away. Whether these weapons would perform exactly as intended in combat remains uncertain. No modern conflict has fully tested such systems against an active aircraft carrier strike group, but their existence alone forces military planners to adapt. The United States has responded by developing new operational concepts, dispersing forces, expanding missile defenses, deploying longer-range precision weapons, increasing cooperation with allies, and investing heavily in unmanned surface vessels, autonomous submarines, artificial intelligence, and next-generation surveillance systems. The competition is no longer simply about who has the most ships. It is about who can detect the enemy first, who can process information faster, who can coordinate forces more efficiently, who can strike from greater distances, and who can survive inside an increasingly contested battle space. The Pacific has become a laboratory for 21st century warfare. Artificial intelligence, satellite constellations, hypersonic weapons, cyber operations, electronic warfare, autonomous drones operating in the air, on the sea, and beneath the waves. Every year, both China and the United States introduce new technologies intended to gain even the smallest strategic advantage, because in a rivalry of this scale, even a few minutes of superiority could shape the outcome of an entire conflict. But despite all the ships, missiles, aircraft, and technology, one fundamental question remains unanswered. Is China actually preparing for war? Or is it building enough power to make war less likely? After examining China's military modernization, its growing navy, the disputed waters of the South China Sea, and the strategic importance of Taiwan, one thing becomes clear. The competition for the Pacific is no longer a prediction. It is already happening. Not through massive naval battles, not through cities reduced to rubble, but through diplomacy, economics, technology, military exercises, intelligence, and strategic positioning. Every new port agreement, every satellite launched into orbit, every warship commissioned, every alliance strengthened, every military exercise conducted, represents another move in a geopolitical contest that could shape the 21st century. China's long-term objective appears to be increasing its influence and security in the Indo-Pacific, while reducing vulnerabilities close to its coastline and protecting critical trade routes. The United States, meanwhile, seeks to maintain freedom of navigation, reassure regional allies, and preserve the balance of power that has defined the Pacific for decades. Neither side wants a major war. The economic costs would be catastrophic. Global supply chains could collapse. International markets would face unprecedented disruption, and the consequences would extend far beyond Asia. That is why many experts believe the rivalry is likely to remain centered on competition rather than direct military confrontation, at least for now. Instead of one decisive battle, we may witness decades of strategic competition, economic pressure, technological innovation, cyber operations, diplomatic influence, military deterrence, and an ongoing race for superiority in artificial intelligence, semiconductors, space, and autonomous systems. The Pacific Ocean has become far more than a body of water separating continents. It has become the world's most important strategic arena. The decisions made in Beijing, Washington, Tokyo, Canberra, Manila, and Taipei may influence not only regional security, but also the future of the global economy. History has shown that rising powers and established powers often experience periods of intense rivalry. Whether this competition remains peaceful or escalates into open conflict will depend on political leadership, diplomacy, crisis management, and the choices made by both sides in the years ahead. One miscalculation, one unexpected incident, or one successful diplomatic breakthrough could alter the course of history. And that is precisely why millions of people around the world are watching the Pacific more closely than ever before, because the future of this vast ocean may help determine the future of the world itself. If you've made it this far, you've probably realized that today's biggest battles aren't always fought with bullets or bombs. Many of them take place behind the scenes, through technology, economic influence, intelligence, military strategy, and the race for global power. Now, I'd like to hear your opinion. Do you think China will eventually become the dominant power in the Pacific? Or will the United States maintain its position as the region's leading power? Leave your answer in the comments. I read as many of them as I can, and I genuinely love to hear your perspective. Also, let me know what topic you'd like to see in the next Vector 1 video. Whether it's a country, a military strategy, a hidden conflict, or a geopolitical mystery, your suggestion could be featured in an upcoming episode. If you enjoyed this documentary, please leave a like, subscribe to Vector 1, and turn on notifications so you never miss future videos covering geopolitics, military strategy, world conflicts, and the global events shaping our future. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the most important wars are the ones the world barely notices. See you in the next video.